Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody. This week, we're going to talk about how things are pretty much going to dramatically change for the game in the first 4 months of 2025. It's something that we haven't really seen happen before. But before we get to that, you will see, if you're watching this, there is no Dan. So Dan is not here this week. He's feeling a little under the weather, so he is out. So I asked Noah and Lucas to come in and stand in for him. But Noah, you and I have been talking a lot this week about PoE 2 and not as much about
Yeah.
Flesh and Blood. But how has your week overall been?
Well, there's been a lot of flesh and blood being spilled in the game, at least. So
Yes.
we're staying on brand. I was actually just talking earlier today about how after playing PoE 2, I understand why Viscerai and like Runeblades in general have started getting those like disruptive cards, because it's you kind of play like a warlock, you're cursing your opponent to make them discard cards.
Yeah.
So even when I'm not playing FAB, still thinking about it. But yeah, it's been a good week. Definitely procrastinating my preparation for Chicago until much later than I should. But what can you do?
Yeah. I'm very glad I locked in like 2 weeks ago and did a whole week of testing because then PoE 2 dropped and I was like, what else am I going to learn? Who cares?
Yeah.
Lucas, you are still in finals, showing up this weekend for Chicago. How's your week been so far?
It's been all right, Lucas and finals, name a better duo. In Fab and in life. But I think it's just been chill. Like I've been doing schoolwork, been doing a little bit on my Metafy that I just put out. Just been chilling. I haven't been playing a whole lot of Fab. Oops. Hopefully, I'll get some games in before Chicago, though. Tomorrow is probably my last day of any schoolwork I have to think about. So even though the next few days are busy, they shouldn't be too hard while I'm like at home alone. I should be able to focus on the flesh and blood.
Yeah. And then you have, is it the first stream this Thursday?
Oh, yes, I can go over
Jarl?
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Yeah, it's hype.
Yeah. So we just made an update to our Discord subscriptions. If you are a Squire in the Runaways Discord server, you now have access to what's going to end up being a month's worth of content for the hero of the community's choice. For this month, all of our Squires, and those being rare and majestic Squires, they all voted, and they voted for it to be Jarl for this month. So I am basically going to be doing a weekly stream as well as putting out constant content, going over my beginning with Jarl, and then I'm just going to test him for a month, and then we'll see where we are at the end. With a full deck list and sideboard guide and everything, and all of that content will be streamed and then published, recorded and published in the Runaways Discord server after it's done. So even if you're a little bit late to the party, you can still subscribe, get into the tier, and then still have access to all that content. You just might not be, there asking me questions during the stream.
Yep. So pretty excited about that. It was very clear people liked our Zen deck and our Viscerai deck. And before that, Hatchet Dory. So figured a good way for not only us to keep learning the game, but also provide people what they're looking for is a deck list for the deck that they choose, along with a sideboard guide actually fleshed out, which is a big deal.
And this is every month. Every month we will have the Squires vote again, and we will have a new hero and a new person will be leading the ship, right? It won't always be me. It'll be just whoever on the team is actually interested in that hero will be giving their specific expertise and their specific experience on a hero that they care about and with a deck that they're passionate about. So you really will be getting like good quality information from good players who have a good process, maybe testing with teammates a little bit and getting kind of a perfect glimpse into our process, with the passion and everything included in it.
Yeah. With a calling level deck list at the end is kind of the goal for, the heroes that can actually function at that level.
Dude, I think month one's going to be good. I'm going to win the Pro Tour with Jarl. You just gotta look out.
Okay, so let's go on to the main topic. I floated a little bit at the beginning, but basically we're about to have like a massive shakeup when it comes to CC. There is legitimately like 6 heroes that in the next 4 months, by the end of April, could realistically LL. And there's a little bit more than that if you count some of the ones that are right in the fringe. But more than likely, what you can say with confidence, there will at least be probably 4 heroes at LL by the end of April. The reason this is different is because we have a pro quest season, and we also have a Road the Nats season within those 4 months. So we'll be doing a Road the Nats season before London, where some of these heroes could LL. And then after London, there is a pro quest season. Both of those are 1,500 points each, the way it currently stands. And then we have a lot of heroes that are real close. Like this year, we only had 1 hero LL. It's only Dromai, right? Like, so there's going to be like a bloodbath. And just so people are aware of what these heroes are, where they're at. I'm not actually talking about this hero at all. I'll put it in there because it's the closest LLing currently, but I think there's a good chance this doesn't LL at all. In its dash, i.e., it's at 940 points, but I mean, it only got 30 points fair, and it lost a card.
Yeah, I mean, two pro quest seasons and many, I'm sure, battle hardens, probably a few callings. Like, that's a lot of time for this hero. Like, that's, I mean, because she's worse, but she, you could still just play stupid Turtle Dash and somebody's probably going to win some pro quests.
So
that, but.
I personally am not counting this in I expect this to be gone in 4 months. Could easily be gone, but it's not counting it to like pad the stats. Yeah. I'm actually looking at the next hero for sure, which is Zen.
Yeah.
Now it's at 845 points. Just won a calling this last weekend. At 845 points, 2 full 1,500 seasons.
He's gone by the end.
Yeah, he's not in the first season. Like, not even. Yeah, no question.
Maybe.
We have callings in Battle Hardened still, right? Like, he's the best deck in CC. Yeah. Like, surely he's going to win something.
There's a good chance. I agree. There's a good chance he's not around for London, but there is still a possibility he is. Like, before this last little uptick that he had, he only got like 130 something points in the last season. We do have a whole set coming out. We don't know how that's going to interact with everything.
We have ninja cards.
We do have more ninja cards, so he could actually get better. But I would say pretty likely he's gone before London. Is where I'm at with him as well. Then Azalea is the next one at 813 points. This is one of the ones that I think over the 2 seasons, it'll get enough points to be gone by basically the end of April.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's like the last playable Ranger.
So it's just real quick. It's Pro Quest, then Pro Tour, then Road to Nationals.
It's Road to Nats, Pro Tour,
or
Pro Quest season. Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter the order, but that is the order.
Okay. If she LLs, she takes out Death Dealer, right?
Yeah,
I believe so.
That's like a pretty big hit to future design space for Ranger. Like losing Voltaire and Death Dealer are like, those are kind of the cards that break the class a little bit.
Losing Death Dealer is probably good though.
Interestingly,
for overall design.
No, it's great. I'm saying that like opens the floodgates a bit. I think for like them being able to print more powerful.
Same with Plasma Pistol as well. It's like smaller because we don't like see it doing a whole lot right now, but that weapon does hinder mech a little bit, I think, with some of the ways that they can make cards in the future.
Yep. And just to throw it out there, in ROS season, she got 155 points. So the fact that she's 190 points away, 2 whole big seasons,
also
she's probably gone.
Also, all the classes in the upcoming set are potentially weakened to her. Like, regardless of whether or not they actually are, like, we've seen her be good into some ninjas in the past. Maybe not so much right now, but she's fine. And then Assassin, she's historically been very good into. And then Warrior as well. She typically is just like stomps on Warrior. So she could, I think she's also very likely to LL in the upcoming seasons.
Next is going to be, go ahead.
I'm curious if we'll get a retrain of Azalea too. I can see them doing that since they already gave her like an armory deck. She kind of has like a lot of specializations, and
I think
you can even think of the Skullbone Cross Wrap as like a pseudo specialization, right? You're not really using that card in other Rangers, so maybe we get Shadow Azalea at some point.
It would be interesting to see, I think, because they would have to design it to where Knock is still like a powerful card. But then also it's like weird. I feel like they would probably rather not have Riddle be legal. I feel like they would rather just make the rest of the cards better and not have to rely on that kind of effect.
If Riddle was reprinted, it would need a name counter, like 100%.
Yeah, agree.
Because they're willing to make Riddle with a name counter.
Yeah, you guys have to have a quest instead of Oopsie Daisy is on top. Well,
Yep.
I guess aim counter is the same thing, but keep talking.
It costs more money, you know. That
Yeah,
deck's not trying to pitch
exactly.
cards.
It costs 2. It's fine.
The next one is Viserai, who is at 810 points, got 275 points in our OS season. Super loved. Could be gone by London. I don't think that's the case though, but I do think by the end of April, definitely gone.
We have
I
3
think he-
weeks. We have 3 weeks of ProQuests before,
1,500 points.
and they're all before
London, yes.
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Their RTN season is before London.
Yeah, and we still, like you said, we still have Callings and Battle Hardens and stuff too.
We do.
Yeah. No,
I think there's no shot he's still alive.
No chance.
I think there's a shot.
I think the other thing too is we're coming out with like a bunch of Draconic heroes, and like Draconic cards are usually red.
Yeah, I would say
it's pretty hard for drawing a bunch of reds.
Yeah, I'd be pretty confident that Zen and Viserai are gone by London. Although it is weird because, it's gonna be awkward if some of these guys like don't LL though, because we're not gonna because what ProQuest season is or RTN season is how it's when is it? January?
Yeah, like what's the gap between
the
the end of the season and London?
Yeah, go ahead and look that up.
I got you guys. You guys keep
talking. I want to bring up the next hero. So far, I'm very confident in those three. Zen, Azalea, Viserai, at worst, are gone by the end of April, essentially. For sure. The next one is Fi, who could be gone, could not be gone, but I'm not even counting them in my 4. And it's completely dependent on the next set, whether it's good or not.
For what it's worth, by the way, Road to Nationals are in February. We have between now and then we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Battle Hardens before London, as well as 1, 2, 3, 4 callings, 5 callings. They're obviously not all of those events are CC, but that's I think there's no chance that Viserai and Zen are not gone. Also, interestingly though, we do have time after those events, after RTN at least, to kind of test for at least like a month.
Yep. Fi is currently at 796 points, which is 200 points away, and only got 10 points in our OS season. If it gets real support in here, it is not 200 points over the course of the next full season. Is not unreasonable. But that's very dependent on the next set. So I'm not counting them as like guaranteed gone, right? Yeah. Bravo, I'm not even going to talk about. He's 100% not gone.
I think he's all right.
He's fine. Yeah. Kano, I don't think is going to leave either. Kano is at 711 points. He would have to spike a calling and some other weird stuff would have to happen. I don't see him being gone.
I think Kano could be gone by the end of the ProQuest season that comes afterwards. I think that's possible. I think
possible, but unlikely.
I think so. Yeah, I think he would have to win a calling, and then I think maybe a new support card would be what he would need.
I think there's a world where like if Mystic Heroes being Zen,
that was LL early.
Yeah, if those both LL, and then we're in a meta where everything's Draconic and all red line, like I was saying before with this, that Kano just becomes like an interesting deck to just punish people for not playing blues.
New is also a couple calling wins away from being able to LL.
But I don't think New is like relevant. I'm pretty sure you can just beat New with Kano, regardless.
Below that is KO. At
real bad,
707 points. I do not expect this hero to be gone at all. It should still be here. However, I do think the next hero is gone by the end of April. And it is Enigma, who is currently at 690 points. They got 600 of those points in ROS season, to point out. However, nothing I've seen in the new set and nothing I've seen in the current meta makes me think that Enigma domination is changing in any way. It might go down a little bit, but its ability to win
nothing
I've seen so far makes me think that that's a big deal yet.
I don't know.
But I don't see this changing when we have an RTN season and a ProQuest season still, as well as everything else, for it to acquire 200 points twice. It doesn't even need 200 points twice. Yeah. It only needs like 110 points and then 200 points.
I think it's probably likely that it LLs by it's. I think it'll almost certainly LL after ProQuests. I think it might not LL by London.
I don't think it'll LL by London.
Yeah, I think like Warrior support. I don't think Warrior's not good into Enigma, but like they did get at least one new card that we've already seen that helps the matchup a lot. Um, and we also have Ninja, which obviously historically is pretty good into Enigma. And then we also have Assassin support, and specifically like what looks to probably be like aggressive, stealthy Assassin support. And I think Nu is already pretty close to being able to have a pretty good Enigma matchup. She just needs like a few more tools. A lot of people already think she's ahead in the matchup, actually. And I feel like if Assassin gets like some real support, then we could see Enigma like knock down like a full tier or two. But I don't think it's ever going to be enough that she doesn't LL by.
I think the biggest problem though is that Nu leverages the Mystic cards to good effect. Like all the good attack reacts are Mystic.
Agree. Well, but there could be new ones. Like they could just make one of the warrior attack reacts as an assassin card. There's a new dagger. There's a new attack react that I don't remember exactly what it does, but it like targets a dagger or a card. And it's like stuff like that. Like just good assassin cards are good.
Okay.
Although
It's possible.
It's also a talented assassin though, so there probably won't be very many actual assassin cards.
Fair.
I think there is a world where something happens that Enigma doesn't LL. But I think more than likely, she is probably gone by the end of April, which would be the end of the ProQuest season after a 3,000 point season of local events.
I also would not be surprised if she was.
I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah. I would not be super shocked. I'm not worried about really anyone else LLing after that. I mean, we have Katsu at 655, but even if he becomes better, I don't see people actually playing him.
There is an interesting hero to talk about a little way.
I'm getting to it. Dorenthi is after that, which won't be an issue. And then there is Nu at 580. I do think we're not going to see Nu rotate out. To be fair, Nu did get 205 points in this last season. I don't think it's going to be gone. It's possible maybe she gets pushed too hard with the new set and she starts cracking up a bunch of points. It's possible like some of these other heroes go away and she picks up the slack because she's just more powerful by being Mystic as well. So she like stops losing some of these other matches. So while I think it's possible, I'm not expecting it, but I wouldn't be shocked if we just see her gone by the end of that.
Yeah, I think it's not super likely Nu dies. Like you said, I think it would have to be some like crazy support in this next set. The hero that I think is really interesting is if you go down, Aurora got 345 points from this season alone without winning like any events, but being in the top 8 and like the finals of like every event. I personally don't have a whole lot of faith in the hero, but I know a lot of people are really high on it. She's obviously super popular. She has pretty simple game plans, very adaptable game plans, I think. So like we could totally see this hero, not gone by like the seasons we're talking about, but like I could see Aurora being gone by, summer. Like maybe whatever the thing is after that ProQuest season, maybe we could see her gone by then.
Yeah. And to reiterate, it's just the first half of the year we're talking about here. Like not even the first half, like the first 4 months.
We're talking about like the near future right now.
Yes.
But Aurora, I think there's not quite a universe that she ever LLs by London, but it's possible that she LLs by the ProQuest season if she wins some big events. Like if she wins like 2 or 3, like if she wins like 2 callings, like
I think he also like glossed over Dory a little bit. Where like last time we got support where she wasn't actually included in the set, she became like probably the biggest benefactor.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just like the fact that hero gets an even wider arsenal of tools to choose from, especially when she has the tutor card with Singing Steelblade, like you mentioned, Lucas. She also has like modality to adjust her game plans based on the different opponents. I don't know. I think she's also not one to count out.
Actually,
I just don't think she's popular enough, even if she gets better. It's the same with like Katsu. Like Katsu could be a good enough deck to win.
All the people who used to play her back in the day have just retired.
But it's just like, even when she was the best at a Hatchet Dory level, like her play rate was terrible. Like it's,
I will say it's kind of interesting. I know we're trying to just talk about the like very near future, but you look at like KO, Katsu, Dory, Nu, and then maybe you scroll all the way down to Aurora. But those are some pretty important heroes that maybe not important heroes, but like those are some heroes that we could see go like after the season we're talking about. They're like kind of on the cusp with Katsu getting his new card that is obviously just broken. Like you mentioned, Dory having new tools, and being a mystic hero, and then Aurora just being her Aurora. Like we could see, like we could literally see like 10 LLs this year. Like that'd be kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's more of like I wouldn't be surprised if Dory at the end of the year is gone, right? But she just isn't typically like everyone spikes to this hero, plays it, and she wins a bunch and she's gone. She could have a good conversion rate, but she's never been like a spike. And it's the same with like Katsu. Like there's people who love Katsu, but most people will just go play the new thing or Fi or Aurora, you know, or Zen until he's gone, right? So he has to like wait till these other things get out of his way before he could consolidate into him.
Unless he's just broken.
Unless he's broken.
That card is redonkulous. Like that card is crazy.
It's a decent card. Just to zoom back in. So what we're saying is that by the end of April, Zen gone, Azalea's gone, Viserai is gone. There will be another hero more than likely gone, but that one is a little up the air. It could be Enigma, it could be Fi, for example. I mean, it could be Dash could jump her way out, but I'm not even including that in this. But that's like realistically 4 heroes gone by the end of April. Pretty massive. Like we've never seen that many, and that's just like the first 4.5 months of the year.
Yeah, I guess if you think back, we had like Starvo and Chain LL at the same time, and then it took Prism like a few months, and then it took who was next, like Oldhim like a year, or no, I guess Oldhim like a year, and then a few months later Lexi, and then Icelander and Dromai died around the same time. No, I guess Icelander died first, and then Dromai after that. But it's been like one a season at most since Starvo and Chain, so. That would be cool.
Yeah. Who do you think would be like the biggest benefactors from?
So who are the heroes that we were like pretty confident are gone by? We're talking about the end of the ProQuest season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Zen,
definitely
Azalea,
Zen,
Viserai,
Azalea,
probably Enigma.
Yeah. Zen.
The one that jumps out to me first is probably KO.
Yeah.
Yeah, KO. Big winner.
You can go back to doing like more fair things.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if that would be very contingent on Enigma, right? I mean, Enigma is probably the biggest impact of a hero leaving, I would say. But you see, like Zen, I don't think Zen is like a gatekeeper of any decks for the most part. He's just good.
Aurora, he's a big gatekeeper of the Aurora deck.
Yeah, but like people, like I think his adoption rate's been like low enough that.
Yeah, I agree.
Whatever. I actually don't think it changes that much in terms of like matchup spreads for most heroes, but like every hero just gets better because debatably the 2 best decks in the format are just gone. Although I think probably
Florian improves a lot too. Like you're now.
Oh yeah, those were both really hard matchups. Yeah, I think Viserai leaving actually does let a few heroes be legal. Like Jarl, I think if Enigma and Viserai both leave, Jarl I think is looking very powerful.
Possibly Ira gets a big boost from those 2 being gone. Those are harder matchups for Ira as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And then just everybody gets a little bit better because the heroes at the top get worse. That's just kind of how it all works, right? Like, Riptide is like a hero that's like obviously pretty shit in the Viserai and not very good into Enigma. But if those 2 heroes leave, then maybe he spikes up.
I would say if we look at the whole year, I mean, we could easily see 6, 7 to 11 heroes gone, somewhere in that range of the whole year. Just boom, out of the game.
8, 9, 10. I think there's like 12 contenders.
Yeah, that would be wild.
Yeah, that's like 12 contenders, assuming that like there's not a broken hero and that none of these heroes get really important support. Like there is like we have like Uzuri's here and Victor's getting support later in the year, and Prism is always 1 card away from being the best deck. Bolton's getting a whole set, hopefully some real support. Kasai's getting support.
But even if KO just like keeps limping how he's doing, like he got 75 points
KO will be gone by the end of the year. It's like not good.
Like even if these heroes that are at like 700 points are just like, I got 75, like, or they're at 700 points right now, they get 75 points a season, they're gone by the end of the year.
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's
they're
like
out.
when I'm with like Katsu and Dory and
Yeah.
Yeah, especially since the way they're doing points now too, where it's checking every week. You won't have a situation where Zen gets to like 1,300.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the actual 1,500 point distribution means that like even if Zen theoretically would have been legal the whole season
Yeah.
and would have got to 1,200, he just like won't, and those 200
There's
can go to someone else now.
there's also, I think, some elements of like the turnover. When heroes get closer to LL, I think people are more likely to play them. And I also think that like when heroes like just LL, a lot of the time people will like not know what to play for an event, so they'll just pick up a random deck, and something that just got support, which a lot of these heroes have. I think would be like a pretty easy like me buy new cards, and I don't know, maybe that's like a little bit reading into it too much, but it is possible. I think that the heroes that are closer to LL get higher play than they would otherwise because
You,
other heroes are LLing. The
you
hero
think
pool is
there's
just smaller.
you think there's some aspect of people wanting to like stay in their class, like if Viscerai LLs to like people just start playing Vincent now?
I think some people will. I also think
I was like, Vincent might just be good by the end of the year. If
Yeah, she could also just end up being better than Viscerai, maybe.
just end up being good,
yeah.
especially with our new card.
I mean, that new
she
card
just
is
got and
crazy,
everything else. Yeah,
right? It's pretty good. I think
It's
it's
pretty
probably
good.
worse than it looks, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I think being able to just have it chill in your banish zone and your opponent's like, it just Blizzard on crack, basically. That's kind of like a
Kinda.
crazy aspect of the card.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just like Fleshbag, but like forever.
Yeah, they just don't get the card back.
Yeah.
It costs you 1 health to continually have that effect open.
Also, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we're going to see fundamentally a massive change to the game in 2025. Something that we haven't seen. Not only did all the books and all of the problem cards, for the most part, that any new deck looking in, you're like, oh, how does this work with Art of War? How does this work with etc.? Not only do we get rid of all of that moving to this year, we're about to get rid of a bunch of really powerful and in some cases really old heroes that have been around for a long time. And I think it's going to lead to a massive shakeup of what this game looks like in 2025, moving forward throughout the year, especially after April. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, we're removing most of Arcane Rising, removes a lot of those like really powerful specialization tutors that they gave all the heroes to.
Yeah, no more.
Kind of like a thing that
no more.
I mean, they just introduced it again with Jarl, but that's something they hadn't done for like a long time. Like a specialization tutor is kind of like a cool part of a hero's identity, I feel.
Also,
Yeah, I mean,
just some like good weapon. Like, I mean, Death Dealer was the main one we mentioned. We mentioned Plasma Pistol, but there are some other important ones. Like if Katsu LLs towards the end of the year, like Kadachis are gone.
KO's a big one for.
KO's a huge one. Yeah, obviously, like Brute just gets like completely turned over. Viscerize is Nebula Blade, right? So that doesn't really matter. Yeah, and then the rest are pretty irrelevant. But
I'd be shocked if New doesn't leave that year.
Yeah,
sometime throughout the year as well. I would expect all of MST to be unplayable after next year.
Yeah, I think it's pretty likely that like all of MST gets unplayable or like LLs, and then they just ban Traverse and make another Mystic set pretty quickly. Because like people love those heroes, and like they really did enjoy like flipping Chi and playing Mystic cards. It's just like obviously like you know, oops.
I guess my next question is this good? Is this a good thing that this can happen in the game? Is it okay for MST to basically be a 1 year set and then it'll basically be gone?
I think it kind of depends on how fast and how effective the turnover is. Like we've seen like Prism 2 and Vincent, I think kind of missed the mark for a lot of Prism 1 and Chain players. Like both heroes are cool, but they haven't had the same like following, and definitely not for the same reasons. But I think that like Jarl will serve to be like pretty like make Oldhim fans pretty happy. So I think we'll kind of see as the game progresses, but I think that the LL system is really good, even if a lot of heroes are moving quickly and you know we have a lot of shakeup. But I think it's important that they get the reprint right, that it has like a decent turnover time, so that you know those classes don't just go unloved forever.
I feel like I'm kind of biased in this, but I love when there's turnover. Like if if it were up to me, there would be some injection of change like every month, whether that's a new like armory deck, new set, new ban list, whatever. Just like
I mean, that seems
something
like
basically after every like couple callings or every major, right? There would just be some like shake up just to keep the game fresh and interesting. I don't know. It's always been weird to me how you can have like two callings in a format and then have like a tier 4 in that same format. It feels like kind of stale. Or same in reverse, where like, okay, we just got done with the tier 4. Now I'm like not super excited to go play a calling in that same format because it's like, all right, I want like I want a new challenge. We had the small ban list with Blue CYB, but it wasn't like massive shakeup. So
I mean,
I think probably for the player base
Dio,
as a whole, they
the
don't like
Dio
this.
ban, like
What's up?
the Dio ban is like, come on, like
Sure,
banning
I mean,
half ban is like, bro,
there was still
you're
in top 8 of Portland though, no?
yeah,
Sure.
but like it's still like a
It
huge.
just yeah, it was huge, but it's not like we're talking about now where literally heroes become unplayable. Like you can still register Dio for the tournament.
Sure.
I'm saying shakeup in terms of like new heroes come out or like bans become so sizable that like a hero just
Or it's just
becomes.
because you played Yu-Gi-Oh, you're used to like
I
30
know.
products
That's why I
per
said
week.
I introed this by saying I'm biased.
Dude, like
Uh,
the meta changes every week because
yeah, it's sick.
not because the players are good, but because the players are bad. The meta just
It's
like
funny. I was listening to the M&R cast actually. Roger had shouted us out, so I guess I get to return the favor now.
mm-hmm.
Um, and at every event, I always talk with Hamilton, and he's so inquisitive as to how I can beat enigmas when I draw hands of like read the runes and blessing of occult, and they're like attacking me for 10 billion damage, and it's like, well, every week the deck changes. I can't keep registering the same deck if enigmas are adapting. I also have to adapt and like start playing more aggressive. So yeah, I like when stuff is changing. TLDR.
Yeah, I'm personally pretty excited for the big shakeup that's about to happen. It also makes it more likely that new heroes that are released are actually good. And I know there's been like an up and down opinion on if MST should just be gone this quickly from the game. But to me anyway, and I understand that I'm definitely in a more privileged position playing the game, I feel like I've had MST for 100 years at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm kind of over MST.
It's very like that's how the LL system works. Like we've had a lot of MST, man. Like,
But I understand also for like the more casual players, it really probably doesn't feel like they've had that much MST. They just, invested in the set, and at least one of the heroes will be gone before the year mark, the 1 year mark even hits for the set. And more than likely 2 heroes will be gone, and then all 3 by the end of the year. It's pretty guaranteed, I think, at this point.
I think one additional point that I don't know if you've considered, but since you're like a competitive guy, not necessarily married to one specific hero, you'll just like play whatever you think the best deck is, except for maybe this upcoming weekend, but we need to talk about that. You've thoroughly tested new Enigma and Zen. Whereas if you look at a set like Heavy Hitters, you don't like need to test Olympia and Betsy. You just like know they're bad and you discount a large quantity of cards. Whereas I'm pretty sure we've considered like every single card printed in Part the Mistveil, right? We like from the random blue draft chaff cards. We even tried like a 3 visits combo deck. I remember when Enigma first came out. Like we tried a bunch of crazy stuff. So we've really explored the set in depth, where I think other sets we haven't as much. So maybe that's why you feel like it's been around for so long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. I do fear for Japan when MST's gone, because they basically got a set for them and they got to play with it for less than a year. And that's pretty harsh on someone who's like brand new to the game from Japan. So we'll see what LSS does about that, because not a great look if like you bought in and you're like, oh, here's this set, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll buy Zen or Enigma or whatever, and then you're just like, and it's gone. And all your cards are unplayable.
For what it's worth, though, one interesting thing about the Mistveil heroes all LLing so quickly and pretty close together is that it makes the possibility for turnover like super easy. Like it wouldn't surprise me if they like already had the next Mystic set. Maybe that's like a little bit harsh, but like even then, it really wouldn't shock me if they were like, yeah, we sent it to the printer last week. It'll be printed a year from now.
And you think it'll be a Mystic set? It won't just be like Mystic included as part of it, like Mystic plus X?
It could be that too. I think they would probably want to reprint multiple of the heroes or of the classes and then probably add some new ones as well. But I'm not sure. I could see like a four hero set or whatever with like, Mystic Ninja, Mystic Assassin, and then like Mystic Ninja, Mystic Illusionist maybe. Because interestingly, like once Enigma's gone, keep in mind we don't have an Illusionist except for Prism. So like Illusionist mains will need something soon. But like honestly, like it feels like they knew Mystic was powerful, and they're seeing now they're all probably going to LL very close together. So their like drive to print a Mystic set is probably a lot higher, because like we've never seen that where like the entirety of a set LL'd like at the same time. Like we've never seen a set just die so quickly. So like seeing it all die quickly at the same time makes me a lot more likely that they'd be like, well, we introduced Mysteria to the format. It's kind of weird that it's just gone now. So they probably, I would expect to have like a pretty quick turnaround on reprinting those heroes. I would expect that they're already in development.
Yep. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with two of the classes getting some cards probably from this upcoming set.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on these shakeups? I mean, I'm pretty excited for the next 4 months. I know we have this kind of lull period right now where some people are testing LL. Spoiler alert: we're not testing LL as much as we should be. But some people are testing LL. But for the most part, we're gonna have like this little bit of a lull before the next set is released, and then after that, it's just gonna be like things are just going to be changing. Heroes are going to be popping off and like going away, and you're like, goodbye, Zen. You're out of here. Like there's a chance that's like the end of like January, February, he's just gone already. Like pretty quick.
I mean, we have callings still before that.
Yeah, I know.
like literally, what it's like Memphis is. I think Memphis is in February actually, but like he could literally just like LL like immediately. Like like it's just like it's like week 1 of RTN, and they're like, oh, Zen won the calling. Oh well,
he's gone.
Bye.
Cool. Okay, let's jump over to podcast questions. These are asked by premium members of our Discord. If you'd like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, see any of our deck lists, watch the streams and all the upcoming information about Jarl, feel free to join in the link below. First question from Millen says, what are your opinions on the legendary keyword?
I think I dislike it greatly.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially with that new Verdance card, it's just like, why do you have to make that legendary? I think making something like Spirit of Irina is like kind of cool as a legendary card, because it's essentially like a 4 of, right? You can tutor for it with
Beacon,
with attack react. So it's like that card's kind of cool to be a legendary, and it's one of those cards that you would only really ever play one anyway. It's not like the second one would ever be useful. So I think that card's cool to have as a legendary, but why not just let the players decide if it should be legendary, and if it's too powerful of a card, then don't print it.
Yeah, I think legendary is a good keyword that's way overused. Like I think Spirit of Arena is like a really good example. Like I think that's a good card. Maybe it doesn't have to be legendary, but I think it's cool for like flavor reasons and for also practical reasons that it's like, since it's a legendary like rarity, that it's there. I also think some of the Fableds are good design. I think like Eye of Ophidia and Blood of the Drakai are not. And I think Library is too powerful for what it is, but I think that like Library is an interesting design. I like the design of Heart of Fyendal. I know a lot of people don't like that card as much. But I think some of these cards are cool to have as legendary, but some of them feel like just weird. Like I think the legendary cards that are legendary because they're too powerful, I don't think that's good design. Like,
like you just get Tumultide turn 0. You're like,
yeah, okay, it's like it doesn't feel better that my opponent doesn't do it as much. Like they're still allowed to do it.
Yeah.
And like if it's a fundamentally broken thing, you just like surely update the card other ways. Like Soul Reaping is another good example. Like that card could have just either not been legendary or just been like toned down. Like that's pretty, like make it a 3 of, just make it not as good.
I think it's
weird.
It's pretty simple. Like how I feel about legendaries are, is the game dramatically different if this is being played or if it's not being played? And if the answer is these are 2 different games, if this card got played or not, then that card is bad and the legendary tag is wrong because you're putting legendary on it to try and lower the power level.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like I like legendary as in like, we don't want you to have 3 of these effects, but we want you to have 1 of them. But you should probably have the 1 of them every game. Like, that's kind of how I look at the Verdance card, is like, this effect is fine, but you can't have 3 of these effects. That's too many. But you should have this every game. Like, that feels like that's a good way to look at Legendary, in my opinion.
I think like Riptide traps are another good example. Even before Plan for the Worst, I think most of like Riptide's games would often go very long. So like the inevitability of like, I'm going to play a collapsing trap, I think is interesting. Whereas like with Tumultai you mentioned, there's like nothing you can do. You just like get Tumultai, like whatever. But with those like traps, I think it's interesting that you're like kind of playing towards and around them, like knowing that they're always coming.
And they made them blue, right? They designed them like that on purpose. That's why you were saying with like heart, it's like fine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's designed to be a blue where you're just pitching the card and it serves its role as like a card that you pitch, not necessarily just, oh, I drew this on this turn cycle, so it's a huge blowout.
Yeah, I cannot understand Ring of Roses design. I just refuse. Like, I hate that card's a legendary. I really feel I haven't played with it yet, but I have to. I think those kinds of effects where like your deck is probably, in order to maximize this effect, like it's an effect that does nothing most of the time. Like it's in current what the community has come up with the best verdant lists. For the most part, this card's not going to be very good or very impactful. It's a card that you are working towards. It's the best payoff that she's gotten so far for decomposing. And it's the only payoff she's gotten for playing cards that do arcane damage for the most part. So why isn't it able to be part of your game plan? Because legendary cards that you have to draw the one of and play them for your game plan to make sense is terrible design.
Agreed.
So I wish this card was a 3 of. And
I don't.
I think that what would have made this card interesting is if it was a 3 of that said you can only control one of this, or like it has like an ETB that's like when this enters play, if there's another one in play, destroy it, and then you like gain a life or whatever. You don't even have to
use the mirror match.
You don't even have to get the beneficial in play, but yeah, it can be your own field, whatever. But just like some way that like you can draw 3 of them, or a tutor effect to let you get it.
Yeah. Like, I was gonna say I'd like a tutor effect.
It just feels weird that it's a one of that is how like you're building your deck around this card in an ideal world, but you can't because it's a one of.
Yeah.
So you just like can't build your deck around it. It's actually really cool. It's actually like super frustrating because it's such a cool card. It's such a cool payoff, I think, for decomposing and for playing arcane damage cards. But like it just doesn't matter because you can't change your deck around a legendary. Like you just
they've explored the design space with quivers before. It could have easily just said like if you control like Staff of Verdant Shoots, you can start the game with this like in your offhand.
Yep, I agree with that. 100% was what I was going to say. Cool. Just for the people who might not know, Ring of Roses is a spoiler card that just came out, and it's a Verdant specialization. It's legendary. It says the first time you deal arcane damage each turn, gain 1 health. Which, if you're also turned on, then would also deal an arcane damage, which is just like super cool.
Yeah. Also, yellow. Obviously triggers your rampant growths and your all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. A card's super cool. Maybe there's a way to get it in play automatically by giving up some deck building restrictions, but I would like some type of like, if the card is really good, so we don't know exactly how good it is. It seems like it's pretty good, but assume this card is really good. Maybe you have to take some penalty in order to get it in play, but you get it in play at the beginning.
You technically do take a penalty. You can play Call to the Grave and Plume, but penalty of giving up your hat and being forced to play.
Yeah,
sure. I meant more of like a more reliable way to get it.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, well, it's also like the card is, at least this might be a hot take or whatever. The card is like stone cold unplayable. It doesn't work. Now I think if you play the Call to the Grave and the Plume stuff, maybe it's fine. But like this is, if you look at like basically any Verdance lists that you've seen recently, like they're not built to do this. Like what this does is, I'm going to play a deck with a bunch of Earth cards, I'm going to decompose, and then I'm going to start hitting you with arcane damage. But like there's not really Verdance lists that exist right now for the most part that like have the ability to both decompose and do arcane damage and are like good decks. Like they exist, like people build them, but like they're not very good, and they're not going to they're not going to become playable by having one of this card, because like it's a one of, it doesn't happen every game, so it's not worth making your deck worse to do this thing. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'll eat my words, but to me it seems like the fact that it's legendary just means that like you can't build an archetype around it. And if you're not, I guess maybe you just like throw in the one if you draw it in your Verdance deck that's doing other stuff, maybe you play it. I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to do with this shit? Like, are you gonna play it in your deck that like maybe does something with it, or are you gonna play a deck that like has to have it? It just doesn't. Like, what are you doing? Like,
I
it's
think you're just oopsing the card into your deck because it's still yellow and blocks for 3 and earth, right?
yeah. But then it's like, are you gonna play it like in your deck where
Yeah.
your only arcane damage is like 6 blues and you're like switch cards? And you play like 9 decompose cards, are you going to take your action point to play this card that probably does nothing?
Hey, if you're decomposing, your hero ability can be turned on. So
yeah, and then you like maybe decompose throughout the game, and then you maybe play an arcane card, and this card
you don't have to play an arcane card. You heal.
You don't have to
right?
actually play an arcane card. Yeah,
Yeah, you can just heal and then ping them, and then heal and then ping them.
But like the current way the deck's built, there's like one healing card. Man, that's they're like but it's I don't know. Yeah. I think seems it's so cool, and it's not. I don't think it's quite good enough, and it really pisses me off because I love Verdance. She's so much fun.
Okay, well, Inanobi says, "What do you think about the new Verdance spec? Is this enough to put Verdance in A tier? It is not, and we just talked about it. I think.
Well, let me tell. No, hold on. Let me respond to the man. It's all good.
Okay.
Instant replay.
Yeah. No. Next question here from Kraft says, at the start of competitive high level playing, pitch stacking was said to be the go-to skill to have for the game. Is this still true, or has other skills taken its place or been seen as equally valuable?
No, I think pitch stacking is like a cool trick that
it's fake now.
You can like tell people that like you can do it, so like it matters, but like it's pretty rare that it actually matters. Like
there was a window where it really mattered.
I mean, even now, like there are some current and recent decks where it mattered at least a little bit, right? Like in like Lexi, I think was a really good example where like you had to play the game, but you did have to keep track of your pitch stack to some degree. Or like you look a little bit like Icelander as well, not quite as much. The pitch stack is pretty easy in Icelanders. I'm going to put the Ice Eternal next to the blue ones and the ice ones. It's not super complicated. But there
Hatchet Dory was
Hatchet Dory as well. Yeah, you still do some pitch stacking. I mean, that whole format, there was always some degree. Like KO would pitch stack some matchups, like a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's less about like specific pitch stacking now. It's more just the player base has leveled up to understand like wanting to know which cards are more important to keep in your deck versus like playing them out on a given turn cycle. Like just identifying whether the matchup is more about keeping these cards in my deck for second cycle where they're more powerful in combinations together.
Well, and also like people just like overrated pitch stacking super early, like to a ridiculous degree. Part of this was Chain's fault because like obviously in Chain it matters like a lot. But for a lot of these heroes, like pitch stacking doesn't matter that much. Like it's one thing, I guess when I say pitch stacking, I'm talking about remembering your pitch stack. It's still important to pitch cards, like you mentioned, pitch powerful cards that might be better later and pitch them next to other cards that are good with them. But like one of the original skills that people talked about like a lot for the first few years of FAB was like remembering your stack and like knowing the exact card, like knowing every card in sequence. And like that's just not important anymore. Like even in like the Hatchet deck and the KO deck, like there's like some things that where like every once in a while it matters. Like you need to know the top card of your deck, but like it's not that important.
I think it is pretty important. We're just talking about CC, but I don't think this question didn't specify CC. I think in LL in limited. Yeah, in LL and in limited, it's I think limited especially.
Limited really
know
matters.
exactly the sequence of your opponents and your cards, especially now that in every set there's been some kind of gimmick recently. Like in the past year, I think there's been some kind of gimmick of like, are they going to play a blue to buff their card +2? Are they going to play an attack react? In this one, like what kind of arcane do they have left in their deck? So what threshold can I go to? What kind of life gain do they have? So I think actually it's super important and limited to be able to track both pitch stacks.
We've also seen like relevant effects that draw cards be or like banish cards off the top of your deck be like
like the sigils and
you're right. In limited, I think it's one of the most important skills and will be forever. Because another big thing about limited is not only do the games go to pitch stack like a lot more often, but also like it's more reasonable to remember their stack because it's like 30 cards and like 7 or 8 turns. Whereas in CC, I kind of like to talk about this concept of like mental, like point, like you have like some amount of mental energy, and like you are expending mental points by like remembering your pitch stack in a matchup where it doesn't matter. But like in limited, like it makes sense. Like you see it every game, it's easier, so it makes a lot more sense to remember like 7 turns rather than remembering like 15 turns of exact cards when it
And also
probably doesn't
in
matter.
CC, it's very rare that a game goes the entire first cycle without something breaking the math. Like
Yeah.
someone will brick an IP, someone will cast Sink Below. There'll be like a
Well, to be fair,
Crown of
it depends
Providence.
on how you pitch deck. That doesn't like always matter. Like if you're like the way I do it is I just like remember the cards starting with the bottom. But
No, I'm
like,
saying like if you're trying to keep track of what you and your opponent are doing.
oh sure, yeah.
Like there's always going to be some unknown information from your opponent's side of them like hiding cards, just like
Yeah.
I
how the
will
game
say
works.
this: you mentioned chain. Chain obviously mattered a ton for pitch stacking. That was a whole strategy for a bunch of matchups. But
Starbucks.
the other deck that you like didn't think about was Oldhim. Oldhim pitch stack was like the first way that Oldhim became a real deck. Was legitimately just like I'm going to swing hammer, and block, and I'm going to pitch stack my Oakenolds together. And then on second cycle, I'm going to be like Oakenold, like smash you.
Starvo doing a similar thing.
Yeah. This was pre Starvo, so that was like these two decks came out relatively the same time, and almost nobody could do this skill. There was only a couple of people that could, and like so it blew up because both the decks were doing it incredibly well, like with that strategy. And so like it was like, oh, you have to learn how to do this at that point in time.
Even
And
the
then
Briar,
and then the Oldhim mirror, yeah, the Briar was pitch stacking to
like
in
people,
reverse, yeah.
Well, people were trying to do the like sting ball
Yeah.
combo. So I think also like a big part of it was people's anti-fatigue strategies back in the day, whether they actually had to in retrospect or not, they were largely based on pitch stacking.
Okay. Wait, I have one revelation I'm just realizing now that like the card pool is like so much smaller back then. You like have to pitch stack because your
Yeah,
deck just like has so
yeah,
much more shit cards
Yeah.
yeah.
that like you have to really make sure that you draw the good cards in a sequence because your average turn cycle is just like worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Continue, sir.
Also, like the Oldhim mirror, that skill was incredibly important.
Yep.
You couldn't play you couldn't play the mirror properly if you didn't know how to pitch stack and counter pitch stack and track. You just had to opt into like Ooga Booga round 1 and like hope you won, which a lot of people did. And I think it like severely limited your ability to play the mirror. And so like this has been a lot, like you've said, we have not seen that level of pitch stacking in a very long time.
I will say though, I don't think the game can't have it come back. We just like currently it doesn't make much sense.
It might come back with the book bannings and then like these other powerful heroes getting banned, like we talked about in the first thing. These like all these heroes go away, and all of a sudden we're playing like warrior mirrors and like warrior versus new stuff. Like
we also like
we're stacking.
We do have like some small stuff still. Like obviously Kano still pitch stacks, but like Aurora like pitch stacks in some matchups. Viserai can. It's like a strategy that some people will employ in some matchups. Zen would if his hero text didn't say shuffle.
We pitch stack the dirty way, where we just try and get everything out of the deck other than the cards we want left in the deck, and then we just draw the hand that has all those cards.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you only have 4 cards in deck and 3 of them are key and one of them's a cosmic, like I mean,
it's like legitimately the strategy into like several matches is just like burn all the cards out of your deck except for these 10 cards, and then you'll just draw a hand and win the game.
Yeah.
So, okay. Next from Galaxy is, do you think that Florian is a strong hero held back by his matchup with Enigma, or does the deck have some other flaws that are keeping it from being competitive?
I think it's the second thing. I actually don't think the Enigma matchup is that hard. I think it's tricky and you're probably behind, but I don't think it's bad enough to be able to like hold him back.
I think it's pretty bad.
People would say. Maybe if the Florian builds are being a lot more defensive now, I would say I think the Enigma experience in the matchup.
The Enigmas have gotten more aggressive, which made it harder now. Yeah,
sure, but regardless, I don't think it's I don't know. Maybe it's changed drastically, but I think if you build your deck to be able to beat it, then it's like fine. I think Florian's problem is just that he's a deck that really has to draw in sequence, and he's not powerful enough to always win when he draws in sequence, and he's not quite good enough to win often when he doesn't. Like when he draws in sequence, like he's still going to lose a lot of matchups because he just like doesn't have the ability to really go above what other people can do consistently. He can have some pretty crazy games, but even then they're not like as impressive as some of these aggro decks. And then when he doesn't draw well, when he doesn't decompose early, when he draws all of his fellings before he's turned on, and you know he just like it just doesn't come together. He's just bad, and he doesn't win very many games at all. Like he's very weak. He loses a bunch of matchups when that happens, and like it feels like he's never in the game. So I wish he was either had some like broken things that he could do, because really right now he doesn't have anything that like is unreasonably broken compared to the other heroes. He has like some very broken cards. But I think he would need like some power play to like take advantage of really good draws, or just like some other engine or strategy or something to like win the games when your deck just doesn't come together. Because when it doesn't come together, it's like you're just not doing anything.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, we've kind of like, if you look at most of the meta heroes, they're like very good at converting hands with many blues and also like no blues, and he just like is not that at all. He really has to draw the perfect blend every hand.
Yeah.
Even if you like say, okay, I've already decomposed, and what I'm going to do is draw arcane seeds into felling, and then the next turn I'm going to draw arcane seeds into felling, and then the next turn I'm going to draw arcane seeds into felling. You've dealt 9 damage because they pitched a blue, blocked 3 of your arcane, took 1, and then they put 2 3s in front of your 8 damage and took 2. They took 3 on each turn cycle. You did 9 damage with your god draw in a row, like after being turned on, and it's just like, like,
yeah, it's like good. Like you're ahead every turn, yay! But like,
yay.
Doesn't feel it's like a little bit different because like you're probably grasping,
a
lot of times there.
I also think Bark Skin is like a crazy card, but like not that crazy in this meta in particular. Just like the way that heroes are, there's no like Lexi.
Yeah,
like imagine Bark Skin in like a Lexi meta would like go crazy.
Yeah, that card is ridiculous. Like I play a lot of Azalea against Florian. Like I played on both sides. Where you want it. Like that card is it's just ridiculous. Like I don't know how many of you guys have played with like Rootbound Trunks and any of the heroes recently, but like dude, Barkskin makes 2. like dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like it's not really how you want to attack the meta right now. No?
Yeah. Okay. Danny asks, what are your thoughts on Ira and her current results? Do you think that she will be able to secure a meta spot similar to Zen after Zen is gone?
So those heroes are not the same, I would say. I think comparing them is silly. One of them has Traverse and Levels and 9 Chi and Kasaya and Shuko. I guess she has Shuko too, but like, and the best hero power in the game. And the other one is Ira.
Yeah, I feel like Ira is kind of more comparable to a KO with Let's Go Again, where like your Kodachis are kind of like the claw.
I think Ira's... Yeah, I mean, Ira's just like the deck that always has existed in FAB, which is people are trying to block a couple cards and swing a Disruptive-ish attack. Like, it's just like a Guardian-y.
I mean, Shoma had a great results this weekend. I don't know how. I've never seen an Ira deck be good. Ever. But he was smushing people.
Yeah, I mean, the deck, it does a thing. Like, it's fine. I think it's probably, like, reasonable moving forward. I think maybe some of the more aggressive versions, and obviously its flexibility is like one of its biggest strengths, right? Like being able to go aggro with needles, being able to play Pouncing Links, but also being able to play like a 9 flick flack deck that just plays 2 card 8s literally every turn is like, it's pretty good. Like being able
is that reasonable to include in the same 80 though? Or are you just saying
no, I'm saying you have the potential to, and then there's everything in between, right? Like you can play an aggro deck with 6 flick flacks in the board.
I kind of think you really have to commit to one strategy or the other though to make
you
it.
Might. I'm just saying, like as a hero, like you have so many different things that you can do. That's saying like Ira is good right now. There's probably an Ira deck that is like reasonable at any given point. I don't think it's going to be like top tier anytime soon. It's nowhere near Zen. Like one of those heroes is broken and one of them is not. But
agreed. I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next set. Maybe it gets support as well from some of these ninja cards. Sam asks, London is going to be the first PT and first major out of the country that he'll be going to. Any advice for him or anyone like him who's competing at that level for the first time?
First advice is like non-game related, but if you haven't traveled to, I guess it's lucky that we're in London where like they at least speak English, but definitely try to plan your travel to get there early and plan on getting used to the different environment. Because good.
Yep, make everything as easy for yourself beforehand as possible. If you've never traveled, or even if you've just like never played an event, like it's so like events. I've been talking to Dan a lot about this recently, but like the least important thing in an event is your preparation. Like it's really like getting there and being healthy and being yourself and like playing well. And no, like seriously, like if you took yourself like 3 weeks before an event and played with uh, the best outside of card game preparation you could, like you were healthy, you ate well, you exercised beforehand, you slept, you got a good night's sleep, versus like full prep but you're like sick and you're like not having a good day and you didn't sleep and you were there like you just
Sounds
got
like a recipe for success.
you're like jet lagged 6 weeks or
Hell yeah.
like 6 hours ahead and you got in there like last night after your flight got delayed. Like I would take the 3 weeks every time. But like it really is super important to make sure that happens and that you, like you mentioned, get there early and be comfortable. I think it's optimal to have a few places that you know are okay to eat beforehand. You don't actually have to go there every time, but just like knowing like a quick, easy spot to just like, I'm going to eat here tonight and I'm going to turn in early because I'm really tired after the long day, I think is important. Just like allowing yourself to maximize your process during the event is really important because you're the only person who can do that for you. So like doing research and making sure you have spots and you know where everything is and it's a cozy process is very important because you being comfortable is going to be what's best for you.
Yeah, I think the most important impact of that too is just like having a positive mental.
Mm-hmm.
So that like if you enter the tournament feeling like, okay, I brought the best deck, I'm gonna kill this event, like I don't know if this is necessarily positive, but I always think whenever I play in a different country, I'm like, wow, I literally flew, thousands of miles to get here. Someone just like happened to live right next door, and I'm going to show them that like I deserve to, it was a good idea for me to make this trip. I'm going to win, send them so they have to go drive home after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a positive attitude is like super underrated. Like every event I've ever won, I have felt good about it, regardless of even if I felt good about my prep or like how I was going to do it. I was just like in a good mood and being myself and just having fun and playing well. The way that you win tournaments most of the time, and people who have done well at multiple tournaments or who have won multiple tournaments will know this. Like you kind of just start to feel the flow at some point. Like you kind of just begin to realize like I'm going to top this event. I'm going to do well at this event. I'm going to win this thing. Like you can just kind of feel it. And that's so much harder to feel when you're pissed off about your round 2 loss because you got high rolled and now you're 7-1 and you're still malding to your friends about it. Like just make sure that like you have that good mental going in. Most people find that when you do well early, it's pretty easy to keep that mental good for the rest of the event. But like if you don't have a positive attitude going in, if you lose in the first couple rounds, you're just cooked because you're going to spiral and you're just going to ruin your
And
tournament before it even has the beginnings of a good run.
the other important thing too is this being a tier 4 where it's split format.
Yeah.
Everything that happened in CC does not matter at all for your draft, right? Just like completely forget about everything in CC. When it's draft time, you're focused solely on draft and vice versa. So yeah, I think you can take that as like you cross the barrier entering into the draft arena, and now you're like, okay, now I'm draft guy.
Yeah.
For most people who top, one of the two formats is going to be dramatically better for them than the other one. I don't mean skill wise. I just meant like win loss wise. So like for most people who won, they either like X1 to CC or they 6-0'd, draft, like one of these like type of things. And so like, even if one of them isn't going well, you just can do well in the other one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like these type of formats are a lot different than other tournaments that aren't split format. But as far as like traveling goes, like traveling is pretty easy. Like you just sit on a plane and you get there. Like so there's not like a ton that you have to do.
Well,
to be honest, like you just kind of sit there and then you get there.
You have a place to sleep. This is like all you have to do.
But do all your planning ahead of time. I like to like map out what I'm going to do the day of the tournament. So like, am I getting up and going down for breakfast at my hotel? Am I going here for breakfast? Am I going to get coffee on the way? I have all that stuff mapped out so that you don't have to think about it and you just get to go do it. And then just make sure you have everything ready to go ahead of time. But other than that, pretty good. Pretty simple.
Yeah. I think also just like more on the topic of mental, have like realistic goals for what you hope to accomplish, not so that they hold you back, but so that like you're like, okay, I'm confident I can meet this goal and I'm gonna try my hardest to push past it. But even just like cashing at one of these events is like a huge milestone. It's not like that difficult. I mean, you have to go what, like 9, and I guess it's 15 rounds now, so like 10-5 is probably
10-5
what you
is
need
the
to
round.
cash.
Yeah.
And so if you lose like 2 rounds early, you're allowed to lose 2 rounds and still win out. In order to get a record like that, you have to win a lot of games in a row. And if you trust in your preparation, you can get there. So yeah, I think just like keeping positive mental attitude even after you're dead for top 8. Maybe this is some advice for Cody, but but yeah, I think just like having some idea of what you hope to get out of the event and just keeping that in your mind as you keep playing.
Yeah. Well, like you owe it to yourself to do your utmost to do well.
Mm-hmm.
So like you know, you still owe it to yourself to play it out when you're X3 on day one. Like if you start off 1-3, like whatever, like you owe it to yourself to try to cash day 2 or whatever it is. I think goal setting is really important in FAB in general, though. I like to usually set like a base goal, and then I like to set a realistic goal, and then I like to set like my like high goal. So like for example, for a lot of events, my base goal is just to have fun. And like that sounds like a silly goal, like that's like everybody's goal is to have fun, but like I think it's really important to like focus on that particular goal a lot of the time. You're like having a bad event, you're like, well, this kind of sucks, but if your goal is to have fun, you should like work towards it. And then most of the time, my realistic goal that I set for myself, where I think is like around average-ish, plus or minus what I expect, is I try to cash these events. Like if I cash the event, I'm happy. And then like the ultimate goal is usually to like top 8 or to win the tournament. But if you have something where like you have fun, you're happy. If you reach X goal, you're like very happy with the event. And then something, you know, you don't even need to have that third goal. That's just something that I like to do to kind of keep me going. But I don't know. I just like having some benchmark for success that you think is like reasonable is, I think, important. Something to like be proud of yourself about, you know, regardless of, you know, how you get there and if you're having a bad event.
My motivation is not being proud of myself. That is how I motivate myself to get better at the next tournament. So whatever works for you.
That is kind of true. I think over the past year, I've sort of felt this, but in a more positive way, where I want to look back at the event and be like, okay, I played well. Maybe I got some of these losses, but I'm like happy with how I played. So I can't really be mad about the result.
I think that's a very good goal to have as well for a lot of people, especially if it's your first event. If you don't know what to expect of yourself, just like being happy with your own play, I think is a very good, like, safe goal. Like just
I have that same goal every time. I want to be happy with my play at the end of the tournament. Some of the, you know, really long tournaments, it's happy with your play most of the tournament, but my goal is always to play perfect. It's not always achievable, but there are definitely tournaments that I look back on and like, I'm very happy with the decisions I made during these tournaments, whether or not wherever I placed. And there's tournaments I look at and go, I'm happy with like 90% of my decisions. And then like this thing I'm not happy about. And that's like stuff to improve on. Right. But there's been lots of tournaments where I'm just like, I'm very happy with my performance, irregardless of where I placed. Like I like what I had control over.
Oh, also, one last thing too. If you do get on stream at one of these events too, just try to like relish the moment. There's like no reason to be nervous. It still counts for the same 1 or 0 points on the leaderboard. And no matter who you play against, if they've won a pro tour, they're just like still
they're
person across from you. So
they're literally
you're gonna have to beat people who are good at the game if you want to do well at one of these events.
I think for that is also like this might not help everybody, so I'm sorry if this makes it worse for you, but like people don't remember the people who play like shit. So like if you like look silly and you like think you made a billion misplays and you're not happy with it, bro, nobody's gonna remember that shit. Like they're gonna remember if you played well and if you won with a cool hero. Otherwise, they'll forget you. And then next time you're on stream, you can show them who's the shit.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about it.
Okay, next question here from Charlie. What is your go-to choices for sushi? I think this one is easy. My base for new places or most places is a rainbow roll. And that is because you can't hide behind the rainbow roll. It's just like no sauce. It's like one of every one of their fishes. And it's like really easy to tell if their stuff is good or not based on like the quality. Besides that, it's anything with eel on it because I love eel.
Yeah, I always go for usually it's like the chef recommended platter or whatever, the one that's like usually between 8 to 12 pieces of sashimi, like 4 to 6 sushi, and then like a California roll or tuna avocado, whatever they have there. I usually get that, and then some like hot dish,
Mhm.
but also very basic. No, not a sauce guy. I know Lucas is also not a sauce guy.
I think that things are usually oversauced. I like sauce. I think that they are usually oversauced. Would be.
Oh, I love sauces, but like you can hide behind that. Like you can just be
Yeah.
like, I sauced it up and it tastes good. And I'll be like, no. Give me your rainbow roll. How good is your fish? Show it to me.
Yeah.
You skipped a question, by the way.
Did I? Oh, yeah. Ham asks, what's your thoughts on hero bloat? We currently have only had one hero LL this year.
We kind of talked about like the like deeper answer to this question, but I don't mind hero bloat so much because it ebbs and flows, as we've seen. Like we're just about to have a lot less hero bloat. But
It'll handle itself, is how I feel about it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as bloated when there's like a bunch of heroes that are kind of unplayable that will like probably be playable in the future with the right support, and then we'll die. I think if we had like 20 hero, if it was still how it used to be, where like every hero is like legitimately playable, it would be like pretty rough. But they're not.
Like LA was a tough meta to eventually get to. Because there was a million playable heroes, and eventually we figured out Hatchet Dory did good against most things.
Yeah. Well, like everything sucked, so even the sucky heroes were fine because everything else also sucked.
Noah, what were you going to say on this?
Yeah, hero bloat is not as much of a problem if the fringe heroes aren't doing some like super unfair thing some of the time.
Yeah,
like if the reason a hero is bad is because like they can just randomly spike you and you have no choice, then I think hero bloat is bad because someone can just enter a tournament with one of those decks and know that it's unlikely for them to win. But
Acilia, yeah.
I'm not naming any names or saying anything about heroes. I'm just talking in a general sense.
Kano.
But yeah, people definitely enter with decks that
Reinar.
Okay, maybe I shouldn't. I should stay away from this topic. But I think hero bloat in the game right now is not a problem. We can move on.
If all the French heroes were Acilio, it would be a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, some of them
all like that.
So they're like 75% of a deck, and then sometimes they just murk you, and you're just like, this is a problem. Like, get out of here. Okay. Renzo asks, what will be the top 8 decks in Chicago? Well, hopefully a chain, because I'm playing
at least
it.
one chain and one star vote, please.
Yeah.
I think it's, who knows, would be my, I guess, like, should we just like go through and make official like eight predictions, or
go for it? You got 8 predictions?
I think one Zen. I think
agreed.
A CYB deck. I don't know if it'll be like Oldham or Florian or what, but I think we'll have one CYB deck.
Agreed.
I'm gonna say 3 Starvo, but I think any number from 2 to 5 is reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So I said 3, 1, 1. And then I'm gonna say like 1.5 Viserai and half a chain. Like I think like 1 Viserai will top 8, and then I think either a chain or a Viserai will top 8. And then I think the 8th slot is like miscellaneous aggro deck, whether that's like Aurora or Briar or whatever. That could be like another Zen or a third of the Rune Blades I already mentioned. But I think like that'd be my official prediction.
I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of it. I think maybe there could be some
spice deck no one's ever heard of.
Yeah, you didn't mention any wizards. Like there could always be some wizard that sneaks in.
Well, it's definitely a Kano. I thought we mentioned a Kano. There's 100% a Kano in top 8.
I don't think a Kano's going to top 8. I think
100% there'll be a Kano in top 8.
I think that deck is really bad and it has a bad like adoption rate. I just think that deck's shit. I think maybe like a Dio would like top 8 as like the other miscellaneous aggro deck.
Or Aurora, like some
deck. Aurora, Briar were the 2 I mentioned earlier, and then Dio would be.
Oh, you did? Okay, nice.
Or like Phi or something stupid. Just like some aggro player just like wins every game because they drew the nuts, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Wardo77 asks, do you remember when your game went to the next level? What was the biggest change for you? No.
Just no.
No, it's been it's been like this, like going up and down, but slowly
there are like moments I can point to where I leveled up, or like
There's moments where I realized I leveled up,
Yeah.
but it was mostly like performance on a tournament, right? Or like playing against other people and being like, oh, I'm way ahead. How did I get this far? Like, how did my knowledge get this far ahead? But that's not like me realizing it.
I would say PTI St. Louis for me was it's kind of weird because that mostly felt like for that format. It was the weekend where I won the Battle Hardened in the PTI event, where like when I sat down across from people, and this was hyper specific to the Lexi mirror, but it kind of like made me think about the game differently as well. And like I sat down from the Lexi mirror and I would go in and I'd be like, I know something you don't. I don't care how we draw. I'm going to win and you're going to lose. And that's how every game went, was like they oftentimes would just draw better than me, or like what was generally agreed upon better, but like they would just make misplays. And like generally in the game, I think it's hard to like see your opponent's misplays and like be sure that you played better. But like that tournament was just like one example where like, I don't know, like how to phrase it better than like I just felt like I was the best player in the room and it like wasn't close with the deck I had and the experience I had. And that event made me like look at the game broader and try to understand the game in a different way, because I realized that it could be understood in that way, like how it felt like in that matchup. And I don't know if I necessarily jumped a level, but I think I jumped in my ability to gain levels, if that makes sense, which I think is really important. Because like learning is like what the best players in the world are the players who keep getting better. They're not the players who were the same skill they were 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, my realization was my first nationals that I topped with Chain. When I walked in the room and I was like, we had just been in our little Chain cave, just grinding out Chain after the nerf. We realized it wasn't like highly played, but we were like fairly confident that this was the best deck in the game. But there was no real online testing at the time, so like there's no way to know. We showed up to nationals, and we looked up, and they showed like on a screen like how many of X deck people were playing at one point, and it was like 75% Briar. And we looked at that, and the team looked at each other. A group of guys, not really a team at the time, like looked at each other, and we're just like, I think we win this tournament. Like, like they don't know. And there was like 19 Chain players, like all of it was us. Like legit, like 10 of them were us, and then. I just sat down and played nothing but against Briar, and I had done nothing but grind this matchup by like half by accident, because everyone thought that they were the only people bringing the Cheerios Briar to that tournament, and it was like just not the case. But we internally had built a Briar deck to see if it was good, and I had played 1,000,000 reps against Dappy, who was playing the deck, and so I just sat down. I was like, dude, I have like 100 games in this matchup. This is free, and I just went through the whole tournament that way. Ran into my one fatigue deck, beat that. I was like, I've played this more than you have, and then just moved on to the whole tournament. I was like, wait, like my prep and my ideas are like actually kind of real and actually functional, and it's like something that I should dig into more. And that was like more of a realization of work I'd already done being accurate, and that helped me then feel confident in my work going forward.
Yeah, being confident in yourself is like very underrated.
Yeah, I think I'm still working on this now. Like this past what it was like a month ago now. Playing against Bartosz on the bubble was like huge, being able to overcome that final round. But I think my like leveling up actually started back in my first nationals, the one that Hamilton won with Icelander.
Yeah.
I remember I was playing. It was like before Bolander was really public. It was like when he started that deck. But I was playing a version that Ethnic Smoke had published. This is back when he was doing like more YouTube content full time.
This is like weather vanes and freezing points and shit.
No. It's not bad. It's with Erase Face and CNC. It's like we didn't make the evolution that you're supposed to attack for 8 instead of 6, but we were close. So yeah. So I remember playing, and it still had Red Hail. I think that was like the other like not normal red spell thereafter. But I remember playing against Majin. I think it was the second to last round, and at this point, I don't know what I'm live for. Like I've only been playing FAB for maybe like 6-7 months, and I don't have like any team or anything like that. I'm just kind of like, playing my Icelander deck, giving people frostbites. And he was playing Oldham. And I remember I had like this realization in the middle of the match that like, I don't actually have to go for a Frost Hex combo. I can like figure out and understand based on the game state how my win condition is like evolving. I had like a level up in the middle of this game of like, okay, I don't need to stick to what the prescribed notion of oh, at this time when you're Icelander versus Oldhim, you just like be super defensive, set up frost X's, try to like combo kill them. But just based on the context of how the game was going, I like realized in the middle of the match that, oh wait, actually the way I'm going to win this game is by being more aggressive, trading damage, and then at the end of the game, it got down to where I was at like 1 to his 7. I think this is actually like backed up by evidence, by the way. If you listen to one of his story times from like 2 years ago, he talks about this game where I was down like 1 to 7, and I was like, okay, I made this realization about how I need to change game plans way too late. Maybe it was like 4 to 7 or 4 to 1 or something. I just know I was at 1 and he was at more. And I'm just like hanging in there. Eventually I draw my heart because sometimes the games pay to win. And he like thinks for a second and attacks with E-strike for go again and has just 1 card in hand. And I'm like, wait, hold up. If he attacked for 7, I'm screwed because I would have to still give multiple cards. But with this heart, I think I had like my tunic up or something still where I could like block heart, or gain a life off heart, block tunic, and like only have to give 1 card. But if he would have sent 7, I would have had to give 2 cards. And I was like, wow, this actually like paid off of my like whole strategy change mid game. My opponent made a mistake. Now I'm suddenly back in the game, and then I go on to win that game. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like sick. I understood how FAB can be a best of 1 game, and you like just kind of stay in it and keep fighting. And then if you play well, it'll like turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that same tournament, I had the other level up. I think I've told this story before, but I know also Hamilton has told this story before in like a shorter form. But back then there was the Wolfpack, and then there was like another team called Hyperloops that I was on. But the Hyperloops had like a whole handful of members who actually joined the Wolfpack. So they were like on the Wolfpack, but they would also like come into our Discord and like watch games and talk because we knew each other from previous games. And at this time I was testing an Icelander deck that had Wounded Bull and various other like 3 for 7 attacks in it. But this is before that version had ever been released. And I was testing it on Talishar, and I'm like, man, I think this deck is kind of good, but like I will be alone in deciding if this is good or not. And I'm like, but this is stupid. No one plays these cards like Fighting Spirit and like and Wounded Bull. And some members from the Wolfpack were in that Discord when I was playing it. And I was asking them, I'm like, guys, should I spend the next month working on this deck for Nationals, or should I just like wait and work on this for Worlds? Because I think there's something here, but I'll have to do it by myself, and I have to figure out the Oldhim matchup, and I have to figure out all these matchups by myself. I don't think I have enough time to figure this deck out. And they're just like, oh, I don't know what you should do, because they couldn't tell me because Hamilton had built the deck already and was going to play it. And so I like him and Hod, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to play Oldhim because I know how to play the deck. I'll work on this for Worlds. I sit down at Nats in my round 4, because I used to do draft first. So I played 3 rounds of draft, went 3-0. I sit down my first round, and it's Hamilton. And he's like, I'm playing Icelander. And I look at him and I'm like, man, I almost played Icelander. And I'm like, and he's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, but it was a stupid deck. It had like attacks and stuff in it. And he's like, oh, like CNC? And I was like, no, like Wounded Bull and some other stupid things. And he's like, oh, that's interesting. And then it was like turn 1. He's like, Wounded Bull. And I was like, I was going to play this deck. And like, and him and I both got a big kick out of that story. And then later find out that the members were in there and they were like panicking because they're like, we can't tell Cody to work on this deck because Hamilton is also building the same deck. But that was like one of those moments where I'm like, I should just trust my instincts of what a good deck looks like. And like, it was like another one of those like level up moments where I'm like, you know what? I think I can realize when a deck is good enough to play in a tournament, and I should just trust that and like actually have just dug in and worked on it at the same time. So that's that story in full details.
That's a good question.
Cool. I think that's everything. We ran a little bit over, even just the 3 of us. So I do want to run some PoE 2 before the night ends, before I have to go to sleep. So goodbye, everybody. See ya.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope here, but
What we could do here is go ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.